a gentleman who was the number 13th ranked player in NFL history, according to NFL.com, a 10-time Pro Bowler, 4-time Super Bowl champ, a Hall of Famer. I'm going to say it, the greatest defensive lineman in NFL history, Joe Greene. How you doing, Mr. Greene?
I'm fine, sir. How about you today?
Good.
Great. I remember you most from that famous Super Bowl commercial back in the late 70s, early 80s with the Coca-Cola can, or bottle back then.
I don't believe that. I know you were a football fan, and I know you were aware that we had won 2 Super Bowls at that time.
Oh,
right?
Exactly. But as a young kid, I was 8 years old at the time. I'm thinking to myself, what a cool guy. He threw that kid a jersey for a Coke
You were
bottle.
8 years old?
8 years old.
Oh, my.
He's a kid.
Well, please accept my apologies.
I remember you as a football player.
Okay.
Coming out of North Texas State, Temple, Texas.
That's right.
You grew up.
Yes, I did.
And all of a sudden you're in the National Football League. What was that adjustment like?
Well, I had pretty good coaching there at North Texas, and I was a big fan of Deacon Jones. I wore that number, and I was a big fan of Bob Lilly at the Dallas Cowboys, and I watched those guys play, and I tried to emulate those guys, and the defense that we were playing at North Texas allowed me a little bit of latitude, and I could do some of those things. And fortunately for me, when I came to Pittsburgh, we were doing some of the same things. So it wasn't that big of a transition in terms of the things that I was doing, but obviously the people I was playing against was a great deal of difference.
How many sacks would you have in today's NFL game, do you think, with your speed and quickness?
How many what now?
How many sacks do you think you would have against today's offensive line with your speed and quickness?
To tell you the truth, I couldn't last. I'd probably get thrown out real early.
Well, that's because you're 65 years old. How about back in your prime?
Yeah, I probably couldn't play under the rules that the guys are playing under today, to tell you the truth. I know they're frustrated, and I would have a difficult time of containing my frustration, and I'm sure that I probably would have gotten thrown out and gotten fined more than my salary, I'm sure. So I probably couldn't have played in these days. But sacks for an interior lineman are very, very hard to come by, and the guys that got those sacks, as like Warren Sapp in today's ball game, I admired him because he was the top of the list there in terms of interior linemen getting sacks. I probably would be way down the line somewhere. My main goal was to win. It wasn't about sacks, to tell you the truth. Now, if the sacks were part of winning, then so be it. But if I got a sack, great. And the only way you'd know I got a sack is you saw it. You definitely wouldn't see me dancing.
So you're against all these celebrations they do now, like the sack dances and the leaps and all that?
It's deplorable. There were a time when I never, ever turned off a football game. I watched every football game I could see. Right now, it's a big turnoff for me. I don't like it. The people that I really liked, I liked Barry Sanders because he didn't do that. And I really like Troy Polamalu. He plays the game, and, he's on television. You see his commercials. You see his plays, because he makes plays, and his plays speak for him. He doesn't have to do that jiggy, as I call it, which is really, in my view, and I think a lot of guys that played during my time, it's a turnoff.
Well, what I don't understand is a guy will make a sack or a good play, and he'll celebrate, and his team's down 20 points. It boggles my mind. It's like, okay, this is a team game. It's not an individual sport. We're not talking golf or tennis. We're talking football. I don't understand that.
To tell you the truth, I blame the National Football League, because they'll spend a lot of time on paying attention to how these guys dress, the height of their socks, if they're having any kind of lettering on it other than their advertising letters. But they let them do something that to me, I think is detrimental to the game. It's not sport. The things that they do out on the football field in terms of celebration, individual celebration, the game is not about individual. It's about team. It always has been. And the greatest joy on a football team is when you can make a play to win the football game, and the entire team shows they're excited by hugging one another and running across the field, and it's natural and it's spontaneous, and that's what I like to see. And I think the fans like to see that too.
You got to give the Steelers organization credit. I mean, look, over the last 40 years, they've had 3 coaches: Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and now basically Mike
Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin.
Tomlin right now, and you know what? They have stability, and they say the coaches are running the team. It's not about the players. The coaches have control, and we're going to stick by these coaches. I wish more organizations would do that.
Well, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly why, over the years the Steelers have been competitive and have a chance to, they get in the playoffs and have a chance to go to the Super Bowl and win. And it's because of the stability, and it's because that, the coaches run the football operation. The boss is up top, Dan Rooney, Art Rooney III, and before them, obviously, Art Sr. They understand the hierarchy. They understand the chain of command, and they hire people to do the job and let them do it.
How are they able to find good people who then are able to find good players and then make a cohesive offense, defense, special teams? In Chicago, we have our ups and downs, but Pittsburgh seems to maintain that high level. Is there something in the water there?
Well, when people have their own self-interest, the egos get in the way, someone wants to take control of the success that the team is having, and then when anything gets in the way of the team goals, then you have a problem. And that's, again, I say that's why the Steelers have had an opportunity each and every year to be competitive. And I've been working with the Steelers now as a scout for 7 years, and Kevin Colbert is the director of football operations, and lately he's been promoted. But he is a very, very special guy. We have 7 or 8 scouts. Everybody has their own input. No one gets lambasted for having an opinion. Everybody's opinion counts, and we know that the final decision is going to come about by him and the head coach and the ownership, and they make those decisions. But we collect the information and give it to them, and they make the decisions, and that's the way it should be. And they've done a good job over the years, and I'm just amazed, and I'm really amazed that I've been able to be there and be in such a good situation, after I have been in some pretty poor ones over at times.
You played for Chuck Noll, who goes down as one of the greatest coaches in history, won 4 Super Bowls, but another coach on that staff I've heard a lot of good things about was Raleigh Dodge. What kind of guy was he?
Oh, Raleigh was the offensive line coach back in the mid-'70s, and Raleigh got the offensive line going, and he was just a tremendous coach. He believed in technique. He believed in developing those techniques. He believed in hard work. A lot of times you see those big guys kind of grazing, as we call it. I always call it grazing because I was on the defensive line and I'm watching. That was my tease for the offensive linemen. But those guys, when Raleigh was there, they didn't graze. They worked harder than the defensive line, I would say. Now, the first guy that was there that did a great job for us was, I can't think of his name right now. But Raleigh came in and just kept it going. We missed him when he left. He was one of the guys that incorporated the punch and the tight-fitting jerseys. And, those guys drilled on that technique. And, we had smaller offensive linemen that could move, they could pass protect, and they could run, they could pull and get out and block on the screens, and they could trap. And that was the Pittsburgh Steeler way. And Raleigh was a big part of that.
Now, on Sunday, was there anybody who gave you trouble that you went up against and you say, okay, today's going to be a little more difficult than others?
Well, when we faced Earl Campbell, when we faced the Jews, when we faced Dewitt Pruitt there in Cleveland, when we faced Kenny Stabler, it was always those guys that could hurt you with the ball. Now, the offensive linemen, there are some great ones, no doubt about it. And some gave you more difficult times than the others. But, in my mind, they were incidental. Now, I got my butt kicked a lot, but I still they were incidental because they couldn't score. And my thought processes was to stop the people that could score, running backs, and during my day they ran a lot, and the quarterbacks that threw the football. And if you get to the quarterback, usually, the team is going to have a difficult time. So that was my charge.
You had some good running backs. I mean, you had to stop in practice, and Rocky Blyer and Franco Harris.
Oh yeah, they were good guys. And I want to go back to I'm sure that some kind of way, my good friend Larry Little is going to hear what I said, and he's going to get angry with me. But Larry Little was an offensive guard for the Miami Dolphins during those days, and he was an outstanding player. And I did have some struggles with him. So there, Larry, I said it. Okay.
You didn't mention Mercury Morris. He likes to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, Mercury was a very, very good player too. I mean, they had, during the '70s, especially the early and mid '70s, the Dolphins were, they were a machine. They didn't make mistakes. They had a very, very good offense with Bob Greasy, the quarterback. He by today's standards, he didn't have the rifle arm, but he had great touch and great timing. Had great leadership. He had just enough maneuverability in the pocket to make you miss and get the ball downfield. So they had an outstanding offensive line. They had 3 running backs with Zonka and Mercury and Jim Kick, and they had that wide receiver Paul Warfield. So
not too shabby.
Not too shabby. They're a good football team.
Right. But they'd have Greasy pass maybe 15 or 20 times. If he was playing in today's game, they'd have him pass, 35, 45 times.
Yeah, it's amazing how much it has changed. And, I being on the defensive side of the ball all of my playing career and coaching career, I just learned to hate those guys on offense. Because they would make us stay up late at night trying to figure out a way to stop them. And as soon as we figured out a way to stop them, they go to the rule books, they go to the commissioner, and they change the rules on us, and we got to start all over again. So I hated those guys. Hated them. Still do.
You must have gave Dan Radovich some needling because he left the Steelers to go to the Rams as their offensive line coach, and then you guys beat him in the Super Bowl then.
You got it. Radakovich, Bad Rad. I didn't. That was the guy that was our offensive line coach that came in before Raleigh, and Dan did a wonderful job.
What do you think of the Steelers' defense now? I mean, they're number 1 in defense, but they only have 1 Pro Bowler.
Well, the guys that had a shot at being the Pro Bowlers, Woodley, he missed them. He missed a lot of time with a hamstring, and James Harrison he missed some time with his eye, and then he got suspended. But those guys are Pro Bowl caliber guys. But every year, you know, there are some guys, some tremendous players out there, and the guys, I'm sure that that receive the honors, I'm sure that they deserved it.
Now, the Steel Curtain is one of the great defenses of all time. In Chicago, people like to point to the 1985 Bears that won the Super Bowl, and Baltimore Ravens have their defensive unit. How do you rank the Steel Curtain among the greatest of defensive teams?
You know, that's hard for me. I grew up watching the Fearsome Foursome and that group there in New York, the Doomsday Defense, and the Purple People Eaters, and anybody can lay claim to a title, but you have to win it to have it. You know, and my argument for my group is that we won 4 Super Bowls. And when you start talking about defensive lines, you'd have to talk about the Steel Curtain. But you'll also have to talk about the Fearsome Foursome. You also have to talk about the Purple People Eaters. You know, that's my take. And because I played, I know how difficult it is. I know what we go through. I would never, ever say that we were better than someone else if we didn't have an opportunity to play those guys. So I'm not going to say that. I think it's me saying it would be a disservice to them, and I just haven't been that kind of guy.
I'll tell you what, your teammates, a lot of you were not only successful on the field, but after football. You look at Terry Bradshaw with broadcasting, Franco Harris with his business dealings, Lynn Swan running for governor, you being assistant coach, and now in the scouting department. How did you guys become so successful? Is it just the work ethic the Steelers taught you guys, or your upbringing?
Well, I think a lot of that is true. I coached with on Chuck Noll's staff back in the mid '80s, and what Chuck did and the scouting department did, what they wanted to have on their football team was first quality people, and then they started from there. You know, they didn't always achieve that, but that was the goal, and I think that through having quality people, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Chuck. He's in my adult life, in terms of someone that impacted my life, and that guy is Chuck. I mean, in all of these years, I've never met another guy that was as solid, as honest, and as sincere, and as smart as Chuck Noll.
Now, do you have a favorite season for your Steelers?
My favorite season is, golly.
You got a lot to choose from there.
Yes. Our first Super Bowl season was very, very rocky. We lost to the Oakland Raiders, probably the third ball game at Three Rivers Stadium. They shut us out 17-0, I think. And we had quarterback controversy with Joe Gillum and Terry Bradshaw. We lost a division game to the Oilers in Pittsburgh late, probably the 12th game in a 14-game schedule, and it was very rocky. And we kind of got it together in the playoffs, and then we beat the Raiders out there for the AFC Championship game. So I'm not saying, pardon me, that's not probably, that would be maybe the best season because of the ups and downs we had and how we came through it. Now, there was one season, I think Super Bowl, the next season, there was no doubt we were going. And then we had one in Super Bowl 13. We were just a team, no doubt. That was a mystery in that first one, though, for sure. So that would probably be my favorite team. And there's another one in 76. We lost 4 of the first 5 ball games, and then we finished the season undefeated, and we played 7 ball games where we only gave up 28 points. That was a fantastic year also. Although we didn't, it wasn't a championship year. We fell short, but it was a great year for me. And so we had a lot of good years, but probably my favorite season was our 74 season. But when you talk about Super Bowls, I don't have a favorite. Don't have a favorite. They were all good.
I want to thank you so much for your time, Mr. Greene. It was a pleasure talking to you. One last thing. Did that kid get to keep the jersey in the commercial, or did you take it back?
Well, I didn't take it back, and I think he kept it. At that time, my equipment manager was kind of a stickler for the equipment. He sent it up there, and I'm not sure if the production group sent it back, but I did not take the jersey. Matter of fact, I saw Tommy. His name is Tommy Ocon. I saw him about 3 years ago in Pittsburgh. We had a ceremony there where we received our Clio Award. It was 30 years late, but we enjoyed it so much. It was a good year.
You're a great guy, and that nickname they gave you is not earned. You should be nice, Mr. Greene.
Oh, that's when I'm sitting down.
Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate talking with you.